Hi guys, Mel the Trench Shooter back in the studio and back with another build for you. And we are back with our trench build, and in the last video we took it all the way up to the painted stage. Okay, and in this video what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking it and completing it, which means we're going to be flocking it, we're going to be weathering it, we're going to be sealing it, adding the water into the trenches, and basically finishing the project off. And that will be the end, fingers crossed, of this end of level boss, yeah, for the Battlefield Basics Let's Make series. Now I'll throw a link up to, you know, the playlist and everything like that if you want to check out the videos. But in the meantime, yeah, it's time to get moving forward with the project. So let's get flocking. Right, got myself set up and we are ready for flocking. Okay, but before we get into flocking, there's a little bit of a challenge that we need to talk about. Now, obviously there's flocking and there's flocking modular pieces. Much like with building it and painting it and doing all those sort of things, we need to consider the modularity. Okay, and what I mean by that is, what we need to do is, if we're using different shades of flock to represent different sort of grass types, we need to make sure that when we put these pieces together in different orders, yeah, the flock lines up. And there's a simple way of doing that. Okay, now if you come down, what you can see is I've got my two end pieces here. Now this is important because technically one represents a left hand end, i.e. on the larger pieces, all the lefts will line up to this, and this will line up for the right hand side. So technically, if I do this one piece and I keep these together, yeah, I can make sure that my different grass blends, so I've got my dark, mid, and a little bit of light tone, my different grass blends, struggling today, grass blends will go down on this piece, and I'll be able to match that they're in the right place. So when I come to do the larger pieces, I'll be able to separate these two end bits, put them either side of the piece, separated by perhaps a centimetre, okay, so they're not actually touching, but I'll be able to see what sort of grass tones I need up the slope. Now when it comes to actually grassing this up, we're going to go for, I'm thinking sort of light, a bit of dark tones on here, mid-tone around here, a little bit of light tone. I want this mainly as mud. Now when we get to the back, I don't really want to grass these up. I want to give the impression of grass on the right hand edge. So essentially what we've got is we've got the trench works and the mud either side of it, but there is grass up there. Okay, so I'm going to do much the same technique with that. I'll just keep that a little bit darker because, you know, the mud and the wet and that sort of stuff. Now, to actually do it, I've got my flock, and then what I've got is, I've got a mixture of PVA. Now, this is just bog standard PVA with water, mixed down to a consistency roughly 50-50, just to get it sort of nice and liquidy. I put a little bit of flow aid in there to keep it flowing, yeah, and we're going to brush it down. Now, when we put it down, we're going to go from roughly here all the way up to about there. Now as we do, before we do the flocking, I've got little bits of barbed wire all around here to fit in between these gaps. I'll push those in as soon as the glue's on, and then we'll move to the flocking, okay? So that's the battle plan. Let's see how it turns out, eh? Right, let's crack on. So that's my flocking done, and it is looking beautiful. Now there are a couple of places that I need to touch it up, you know, and there's a couple of places where I could feather it in a little bit better. I'm not too concerned about this. When I seal it all, okay, and it's all got a watery PVA over it, I'll be able to go in and sprinkle in certain places and fix it. There's certain places on these other boards where I've missed with my PVA and I've got little blank patches. I'll just fill those with a little bit of flock when I've got that watery PVA solution on it. So that's a touch up at the end, but overall looking quite nice. Now we've got the basic greenery on, and what I've done is I've sort of encapsulated the trench within the green zones. Okay, which is what I wanted to do. Now there is a stark contrast, yeah. We'll blend that out with with inks or paints later on, yeah. But right now I need to get my garnish on, yeah. Now by garnish, what I mean is my static grass, my clumps. There was a discussion on on the live show about whether we should put flowers on it, and it was pretty much decided unanimously. Everyone, yeah, everyone decided we should put poppies on it. So I've got these lovely little flowers. We'll put some of those on it. But first, we've got to do the static grass. Now, for the static grass, what I'm doing is I'm using a flop box. Yeah, this one's from warpainting.net. Yeah, using its external terminals to go to a sieve with one, and then my little probe that I designed, yeah, with the other, which just makes it easier for me to work on large areas. Yeah, there's videos on this in the simple tips for the probe and the flop box. I think that's product overviews. But search my channel for flop box. You'll find all the information on making flowers with it and all sorts. Now, when it comes to the actual static grass, I've got 3 bags of grass. Yes, leave it. Yeah, I've got 2mm, 4mm and 6mm. What this is going to allow me to do is to actually make some quite interesting variations in the grass, rather than having that sort of one sort of height mowed lawn look. Yeah, what this will do is it'll give me a bit of variation, and just to show you, yeah, that's what the variation is going to look like. Yeah, different strand heights, yeah, making it look a lot more realistic. So with that in mind, I better get my flocking done. I thought this was flocking, but that's a flop bot. I don't know. I'm just going to crack on. So that's my electrostatic flocking done. That's the difference. Yeah, one uses electricity. And as you can see, I've used it to create these patches. Okay, now this is just about breaking up the terrain. Yeah, I don't want it to fully cover the whole thing with static grass, because it's probably not going to be going on a static grass mat. I just want some rougher grass to start breaking it up. Now, I don't want to put lots of bushes and stuff on this, because it's a playable piece and I want as much of it playable as possible. But we do need to add some more stuff. Now, in the mix, yeah, we've got our poppies. Yeah, I've got some various, clump foliage from Jarvis. Yeah, or Jarvis Scenics. Yeah, those guys. Yeah, and then, we've got some various stuff from Woodland Scenics. And this is just going to be applied with a little bit of PVA. Yeah, I'm going to get a couple of alternate clumps, so it's not just one colour, and then just simply put them down to help break it up a bit. Okay, and that'll really start to make it pop. So my next job is I want to get my clump on, and I want to get my poppies on for a bit of a spot colour contrast. Okay, so that's the next task. PVA will be the tool of choice, yeah, and it's just a matter of breaking it up, put a blob down, sticking it on, crack on. So that's our clump foliage put on, and if you look at the piece, yeah, you can see I put it in various little clumps just to break it up along with the static grass, and this sort of plainness is really breaking up now. But we've reached the stage where we need to do the final touches, because we've done the gross clump foliage, i.e. the patch, the static grass and the clump foliage, yeah, but we need to start adding some little bits like this ground foliage. Okay, now this is just fine chopped foam. This is going to get sprinkled on, but you can't really do it till you get to the sealing stage. The reason being is you find little bits, okay, you can't glue those down individually. Yeah, it'd just be a nightmare. So what you need to do is sort of soak the piece in your sealing solution, yeah, and then drop these on and let them soak in and fix. Okay, now Yeah, for my sealing solution, I'm using this. Yeah, now this is watered down PVA. It's 1/3 PVA, 2/3 water, with a little bit of Winsor Newton flow aid in there. Okay, and it is just going to be a simple matter of me coming along to my piece, which is down here. I've got it on a bit of plastic. Yeah, obviously there's going to be a lot of drips. It's raised up on some foam. Yeah, so that it doesn't get stuck to the plastic or whatever it's on. Yeah, and it is a simple matter of starting the blasting process. And I am going to give the whole thing a good soak. Now, a lot of people pre-wet these things. There's no real need, to be truthful, if you've got a decent amount of flow aid. Yeah, you can just give them a soak. Concentrate at the top and let it work down. Yeah, any excess pools that I'm going to get in the craters, I can soak those up with a bit of paper. Yeah, so I'm going to crack on, get this soaked, then I'll show you the sort of foam flocking. So, all soaked, I've got my foam flock, and all I'm going to do is just come along and give it a little bit of sprinkle in between various bits. Yeah, like I say, this will soak up while the moisture's still on it. This will soak it all up. Yeah, and fix really nice. Yeah, in between the lines. You can already see the colour gradients changing on this. It's beautiful. Yeah, so sprinkle some along here. Ba 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 ba. Yeah, we'll get some dark. Just a bit of a contrast. Yeah, dark along there. Yeah, and you can see it soaking up through the all the clump foliage. Yeah, and making it nice and solid. If you are worried about some of your clump foliage not really sticking down, you can give them another blast. Now finally, I've got my little bits of, yeah, just simple scatter, and I can start blending in edges. Yeah, anywhere where I think that I've missed up or I've messed a little, I haven't got it just quite right, I can go in and just fix those. Yeah, any patches where the PVA didn't stick before and I've been left with empty patches, I can fix those as well. Yeah, but I can just blend these edges in. Yeah, oh, there's some. And that is all there is to it. Just need to very quickly, yeah, because we don't want to pool the PVA in there, do we? Yeah, soak that up. Ugh, seen the colour bleeding off it. Right, next job, I've got to leave this to drip dry, yeah, and then what you call it, obviously once it's all dry, we'll be able to do the staining, okay, and sort of make it look a little bit more realistic, yeah, so, see you shortly. So that's all our PVA sealing done, and it is all nice and dry, and we are on the last leg. So if we come down, yeah, as you can see, everything is rock solid, everything's stuck on. Yeah, it's looking a lot nicer now. The colours have blended and muted down, but it's still not quite there. You see, what the problem we've got is we've got this sort of line, and even though I broke it up with my sprinkling, it's still a little bit strong. So what I've done is I've got my airbrush, and you can use a damp brush with this. Yeah, you can do it. Yeah, airbrush is just a bit easier. And inside I've just got some watered down brown, my standard brown. And all I'm going to do is just come along, yeah, and just spray along these lines. Yeah, and what that will do, yeah, is that's going to help these lines blend in with this mud line. Now on top of this, I've got to go round all my craters, okay, and then once they're done, I'm going to come back in with a black, okay, so, well, with a black slightly touched with my brown, yeah, just so it's not a matte black. And I'm going to come in and do the centres of my craters, okay? So, that's my next task, yeah? Blend these edges, do the centre of those, and then we're ready to put the resin water effects in and finish this project. So, I'll get stuck in. So that's all the ground shading done. And if you come down, you can see we've got this lovely look to the actual craters and this sort of mud patch around it where I've gone in and stained it with my brown paint. Now, there was I posted a picture online, there was a bit of discussion, you're going to put more debris and that sort of stuff on it. And no, I'm not. Okay, a little bit of a sort of discussion over craters, yeah. The mess you get from craters depends on the ground you hit. If you hit really soft, wet ground, it can get really messy, as you can imagine. But most artillery strikes, when they hit relatively hard ground, don't actually throw that much dirt up into the air. See, a lot of the space from the crater is actually compressed by the explosion compressing the ground down. A reasonable amount of the earth is on the actual rim of the crater, so the amount that actually goes up in the air isn't that much. It's also dispersed over a large area and it's quite loose, which means a couple of rainfalls and it very quickly muddies down and becomes a stain on the ground, which is what I was trying to go for on this. The reason being is I could have put a lot of debris like fresh strikes, but one, it would be really messy, I'd lose my detail on my sandbags, it'd be all over everything because it would get all over everything. On top of that, it sort of goes against the idea of me fixing up damage where there's been artillery strikes. If the artillery strikes are fresh, they won't have had time to fix them up yet. And so I'm going for a little bit of staining instead, and that's why I've gone for this way. We will cover large debris and big explosions in another video, I think, because they really need quite a bit of time dedicated to them to explain them. So we'll cover that in a future video, guys. You sent me a lot. You sent me off topic enough with with duck boards and muddy trenches and current saps and ladders and everything else. So I'm doing that in a different project, guys. But this one, I still might muddy it up a little bit more. But yeah, get back on track, both. Right. Back to the actual piece. Now, as you can see, yeah, I've got all my staining in. Now, not just that, it's been a day, yeah, and my my clump foliage is all firm, you know what I mean, everything is, yeah, absolutely solid and fine. And it's all sealed up, but that's the ground foliage. We've still got the actual trench works. And what I mean by that is, this is still, Das modelling putty with just paint over it. This is balsa wood with just paint over it. You know what I mean? This is cardboard with just paint over. It needs protecting. Now, I could use watered down PVA for that, but the problem with that is it can pool a bit in the recesses, and on something like that, it's a little bit more difficult to get out with your paper towel. Secondly, with grass, yeah, you don't get a sort of glossy effect with the PVA. With with hard textures such as sandbags, bunkers, stuff like that, the PVA can give it a bit of a glossy texture. Yeah, so my choice is matte varnish. Okay, now my matte varnish of choice is this, which is Pro XL. Yeah, Pro Matte Varnish. It's about £9 a can. It's a car varnish and it's brilliant. Dries in about an hour. Yeah, it can be used in all sorts of different moistures. Really tough finish on it, yeah, and very matte. So my battle plan is I'm going to take these out my studio to the spraying area. I'm going to give them a quick spray of this, and by that I'm just going to do the sides, yeah, and then I'm going to do the actual trench work channel, yeah. There's no point me really spraying it on the flock. Yeah, one, it's already sealed, and two, this is a surface varnish, i.e., yeah, it will coat the surface of something and make it hard. Flock is kind of spongy and lots of different textures, so it won't soak into that. The PVA has already done that, which is why we need to use PVA for that. Okay, guys, so I've got some spraying to do, and then we will be back with the final resin pour. So that's the matte varnishing done, and it has finished lovely. But I haven't just matte varnished. I went back in with my airbrush and just sprayed a little bit more dilute brown around those craters and around those areas, just to muddy it up a little bit more. Yeah, and the results are rather nice. So that's what we're looking at. Now this has all been varnished, this is nice and tough and all playable. Same here, this is all firm, and as you can see, we've muddied it up lovely. So I've got a lovely transition from the green field all the way up to the muddy trenches, which are on the top of a hill. That's your fault. You wanted me to show you how to do muddy trenches. There shouldn't be muddy trenches at the top of a hill. They should be at the bottom of the hill, in the lowland, where they're dug closer to the water table and they don't drain properly. But you wanted the technique, so we've got muddy trenches at the top of the hill. So this is your fault, okay? But it does look beautiful. It does bug the terrain builder in me a little, yeah, but it's what you guys wanted. Now, we have varnished, and this would typically be the end of the process, and Mel would be a happy chap, but we are not finished yet. You see, we have to put the resin in now for the water effects, because you wanted water and puddles and, you know, water under the duck boards and that sort of stuff, so we've got to do that. Now, I've had to leave it to the very last stage, because obviously I've sprayed these with matte varnish. If I'd put the resin in before the water effects, spraying them over with the matte varnish would have basically matted them out and ruined the water effects, so they've had to go in after the matte varnish. And if we come down, what I'm using is, I'm using glass cast from Easy Composites. It's a 2-to-1 epoxy resin, hot epoxy resin, yeah, and I'll be mixing in just a little bit of brown in there, okay? Now these are my core brown colours that I've been using all the way through, so it will match the ground colour and it will look right, okay? And the idea is that we're going to pour it, in between those duck boards, and there's a couple of places which, you know, we can put some puddles in, okay, but I haven't got that much of it left. So my priority is do the duck boards, and then depending on how much volume of resin I've got left, then we'll move on and we'll look at doing perhaps some puddles and stuff like that. I should be able to, but can't be 100% sure. Now my next job is to mix up the resin. Now I've talked about resins and all this sort of stuff. They're in the water playlist, yeah, you can go and have a look at instructions on those sort of things. I'm not going to baby step you through it, but basically I'm going to weigh them up, okay? 1 part hardener, 2 parts resin. I give them a mix, okay? Pour them out of the cup that I'm mixing them in into a fresh cup. It's called double cupping, yeah, and it's a good way of making sure you get a really good mix. Once the double mix is done, I'm going to throw the a little bit of paint in there, get my colour in there, and get it in here as quickly as possible. That's because I've got about 15 minutes before it starts, you know, getting a bit more viscous. Okay, and it'll be difficult to pour and that sort of stuff, so I need to be on my toes on this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start my stirring and all that sort of stuff and just get stuck in, and when we come back we'll have puddles in our trenches. So I'll get cracked on. So guys, mistakes were made. Big mistakes. Right, what happened? Right, I was doing the resin pour and decided I'd like to do it on my live show. At the same time, I had Fred joining me, so I was chatting with him. I was doing the live show and I cracked on with the resin. And I made a couple of mistakes. One, I forgot to press record on my camera here, so I haven't actually got the footage of me doing it. Stupid Mel. Okay, on top of that, there's an actual problem with the actual pour. Now come on down, okay? This is the resin I used, yeah, the glass cast from Easy Composites. I mixed my sort of browns in, yeah, my brown and my black in, and I got a lovely sort of opaque, muddy colour. That went with my earth tones. Now, what I did was, I came in and I poured it between the duck boards, and then I got some left over, and so I poured it in the little dips to get some puddles, okay, as you can see there. Okay, so you can see them there, there, there. And as I was looking at them, what I got is I got this situation of this relatively looking, I'm not going to say dry, but damp ground. And then I've got these puddles, okay, which were really glossy, but not just that. The resin itself was sort of quite thick and viscous, so they'd actually got a rim. So what I decided I'd do was, I needed to blend those in a bit, yeah, and get a transition in there. So I came along with my brush and a little bit more resin, and I just blended the edges with a cheap brush, and it was literally just a matter of coming down to the blob and just blending it in. The problem was I got a bit carried away and I did the entire damn thing across the whole lot, and so what I've been left with is a really watery trench on a hill, yeah, But that doesn't go with the contrast of the rest of the pieces, you know, because they'll look a lot drier. So I really beat myself up about this last night. Okay, and I went through these stages of, oh God, I've ruined it. You know, then it's like, all right, what can we do to fix it, boss? And then it was like, right, what can we actually learn from this, you know? I did say this was the end of level boss. It was supposed to throw me a few challenges. Yeah, and it has, and this is, you know, this is the very final step, and it decided to really kick me up the backside. Yeah, but give me an opportunity to start sitting down and thinking, right, what can we do? Now, we know that we want the watery in the dips. Yeah, it's just where the ground comes up a bit, we don't want that too soaked. Well, if it's raised, we have techniques for dealing with raised earth and leaving the lower earth. It's called dry brushing and overbrushing. Yeah, so we've got a technique now. How do we it? How do we knock the gloss back? Well, if we overbrush with just simple house paint and acrylic and that sort of stuff, we will get a matte covering, which may be too sharp. But when you make washes, what you do is you water down the paint or the ink, yeah, and then you add a matte medium in there. Now, the reason you add a matte medium in there is when you water down paint, you get a glaze, which is sort of a satin sheen, yeah, which looks kind of damp. So theoretically, I should be able to mix up a thin wash using my browns and then very carefully dry brush the wash on, overlayer it. And I've got to be careful with that. I'll have to keep very little on the actual brush and just layer it over the large areas. And fingers crossed, that should knock down the gloss look. Yeah? That's Mel saying fingers crossed. Right, last challenge of the board, of the ender level. Let's do this. So guys, all sorted. We beat the boss in the end, and at the end of the day, it wouldn't be a proper project. You know, it wouldn't be a proper ender level boss if it didn't throw me a few challenges. And I must admit, this was a challenge. So we got gloss resin everywhere, and it was too wet. So what I did was came in with that really thinned down base colour. Yeah, and I pretty much used all of it. Thinned down, laid it over, then came along with a damp cloth and just cleaned it up. And the end results are looking something like that. Okay, which are beautiful. We've got that lovely blend between the deep pores, the sort of wet ground and that sort of stuff. Now, in all honesty, because I am always honest with you guys, I'm probably going to come in over the next week or so and do a little bit of touching up with a bit of ink, some and some varnish, some gloss varnish. A couple of places in the trenches and probably in the bottom of the craters a little, just to give it an extra little bit of depth. You don't need to do that. It's just with this going off to Warlord, yeah. I'll probably, you know, put a little extra effort in it for those guys. Yeah, so it will be slightly different when it makes it to Warlord, but not noticeably. Not noticeably for you guys anyway. Yeah, so that's it. That's the project done. Now, with regards to this is heading off to Warlord in the next week or two. Yeah, keep an eye on my channel pages and Warlord's page. Yeah, because when it goes up over Easter, I will go up with it and we'll have a game. So if you fancy coming down and playing on it, seeing it in person, I'll be in Nottingham at the Warlord store, having a game with it. Okay? Now, as always, guys, yeah, with these videos, like them, share them, all that sort of stuff. Obviously, if you've got any questions about anything I've done in these videos, get them down below into the comments, yeah? I'm here to help, guys, you know what I mean? And as always, yeah, if you've enjoyed following me along on this project, if you've learned something, if my videos entertain you or help you, yeah, please consider jumping on the page and thing. I only ask $1 a month, yeah, but the more support I get for my first video, yeah, the more in-depth projects, the more time I can spend on videos, you know what I mean? And the more in-depth projects I can take on for you guys. So, if you'd like to see more of this really cool in-depth stuff and me taking it beyond the Let's Makes, yeah, there'll be links on the screen. Jump on Patreon, throw me $1 a month. It's not much, but it does make a difference. Yeah, and you'll be getting great content. Remember, I rely on you few good people to help me through all this. So that's this video. We've covered flocking, weathering, sealing and water effects, yeah, in our trench lines, and it is beautiful. So I'm going to leave you with some links, and I'll be back with some more normal tutorials pretty soon. All the best, yeah? Ta-da!